culture of silence concerning abuse against women and children. When we think of child abuse, we think of the victim, the child, and the perpetrator. Often we do not even know of other victims, that is, the whistleblower or the person who raised concern on seeing the abuse. It's only when I raised concern myself about the abuse of children in my own locality that I realized there are so many victims, sisters, priests, and lay people. Some of these have been murdered, while many have been treated in such a way that they were never the same again. Some got a nervous breakdown, while others left religious life, harmed and embittered by their experience. Some few survived the persecution and were able to speak of their experience or write about it. All of us Catholics have a responsibility to try and understand the culture of silence, change it, and lead the church and religious life to better and more wholesome ways of dealing with those who raise concern about wrongdoing of religious or priests. I guess it's only by telling our own stories that we can begin and continue to break the culture of silence. I work with very vulnerable children, youth and parents in a slum in an African city. Most of my work involves empowering the residents to access education and training so that they can live independent and dignified lives, earning their own living. One Monday, I noticed a huge change of behaviour for the worse in girls aged 11 to 14 and wondered what had happened. After talking to the girls, I found they had joined a youth club run by the parish and in particular by one priest. Let us call him Father X. In this club, they were young girls mixed with much older boys and young men. There was an atmosphere of flirting and couples. There was no proper supervision or care for the young girls. Most of the boys were not from the slums, but from the neighbouring middle-class area. The girls were hyper, unable to concentrate in class, whereas before they joined this club, they were promising students. The girls enjoyed the club very much. They danced with the men, participated in drama, and went swimming. They had food and drink with rumours of alcohol and drugs. Then a number of the girls were pregnant. I had seen 1 or 2 pregnancies in the school, mostly among the older girls over 14, but now there were many. Also, the girls were very young, and they needed good medical care in order to deliver a healthy baby and in order to survive the birth experience themselves. I arranged with their parents, who either had low income or no income, in a country with no social welfare, for the girls to be admitted to a home run by another congregation, which had a maternity hospital attached. Before I knew they were pregnant, some mothers had taken the girls to abort. As abortion is illegal in Kenya, the girls had horrific experiences with unqualified and illegal abortionists, while some suffered heavy bleeding and had to be hospitalized. A few died. I was horrified by what was happening. I decided to visit the parish priest and tell him what I had seen. Usually membership in a club is of help to the children and the youth, but membership in this particular club was very harmful for the girls. The parish priest listened to me and told me he would inform Father X and the other priest about my concerns. Soon after, I was preached against in the church and in my own convent hospital chapel. I was attacked by lay people and prayed against at the prayers of the faithful. I lived in a community of 15 sisters at the time, and at a community meeting, 8 sisters accused me of speaking uncharitably about the priests and of being jealous of Father X. They were ashamed of having me in the community. The other 6 remained silent, yet they knew I was speaking the truth. They had seen for themselves that the behaviour of Father X was not appropriate. They were good people, but could not speak due to the culture of silence. They also feared to be persecuted as they saw happening to me. One of two of these sisters speaking out at that time would have made a huge difference to me. Over the years, all 6 sisters and some of the other 8 did come to me one by one to tell me what they knew and to apologize for their silence. Some of them suffered severely for not speaking out, in that they felt guilty. One had witnessed some of the abuse of the girls, but could not reconcile the abuse with the same priest swearing before the Blessed Sacrament that he was innocent. 10 mothers from the slums got together and wrote a letter to the Cardinal telling him what was happening and that I was the only person speaking on behalf of their children. The Cardinal copied the letter to the parish priest so that he could investigate. But instead of investigating, he called out the names at Mass and humiliated and silenced the women. He also silenced the others in the congregation who were thinking of speaking out. The district officer, who was Muslim, heard of the huge controversy going on and visited the school. He met with the teachers and with the pupils from senior classes. His findings were that the girls were being abused within the club. He told me verbally, but did not give me a written report. However, his report was probably given to his superior before he took action. He wrote a letter forbidding that priest to come into the slums. The Cardinal got a copy of the letter and called me to his office. He informed me that Father X had been barred by the authorities from entering the slums. Father X had thought it was because he had spoken strongly against the corruption of some politicians. However, the Cardinal knew it was because of my concerns and his alleged inappropriate behaviour with young girls. He then informed me that 14 leading priests from various congregations had complained to him about my behaviour, most of them saying that I was lying and jealous of Father X and wanted no one but myself to work in slums. He allowed me read some of the letters, but did not give me a copy. I knew some of the writers to see or hear about, but had not met others. Some of the letters had been copied to my superior. I asked the Cardinal, how did these priests know I was lying, if they barely knew me to see, and had not interviewed the children and the teachers? They lived in the rich sides of the city, while at that time I was living among the poor. I said Father X must be blackmailing them to stand by him, or he would reveal whatever they were doing. Why else would those priests complain about a sister they barely knew who lived far away from them? The Cardinal was shocked by my saying that, as they were very important priests and in very high standing, some of them were major superiors. I asked him to set up a committee of diocesan priests to look into my claim. About 2 years later, he informed me that all of the 14 had inappropriate relationships with children or teenagers and had been asked to leave his diocese. I was fortunate to have a bishop who gave me a hearing. I got a letter on a Saturday calling me to a meeting of the parish council the next day at 11. My superior was also invited to attend. From the tone of the agenda that the meeting was about some events that had taken place recently, for which I could give an explanation, I guessed it might not be a pleasant meeting. I prepared a statement. I phoned my superior and she told me she did not intend to attend. I arrived at the meeting and found the meeting room crowded. There were many male youth club members present who were not members of the parish council. The room was so crowded I could not see all the people present, including my superior. After the meeting was called to order, I was invited to give my explanation of recent events. Father X had already given his version at an earlier meeting, I was informed. I stood up and gave my statement and then left. I could feel the hostility in the room. The meeting went on until past 4 p.m. My superior apologized for any wrong I had done. Some of the crowd called for me to be expelled from the parish. One man stood up and defended me, saying I had a duty to defend the children. He was shouted down and accused of receiving bribes from me. After the meeting was over and this man returned home, Father X, who had not been allowed to attend the meeting, but had been updated on what had occurred by the other priests, came to his house and verbally abused him in front of his wife and children. He was shocked and traumatized. He was silenced and never again attended that parish. At meetings, a paper was sent around where people wrote their name as being present. The Cardinal received a letter asking for my removal from the parish, signed by these names. However, when the Cardinal phoned some of the parishioners whose names were there, they said they had signed no such letter. It seems the letter was superimposed on top of their signatures. I did not know about this until years later, when a parish priest told me that Father X had done this. The Cardinal then had informed them that the letter he received was fraudulent. The Cardinal now decided to send Father X out of his diocese. He notified the priest and his superior. He informed me and told me to move immediately from my small convent back to a big community. He also informed my regional superior that I was to move with immediate effect for my safety. He told me not to go to work for 10 days until after the priest was gone. When I did return to work, I got death threats from male members of the youth club. I reported the threats to the police. I warned those men that if anything happened to me, my office, house or car, the police would come for them. I then endured years of blame for the exit of Father X. The priests continued their culture of silence. They never admitted openly that his exit was due to his own activities. Though through the years individuals did tell me that what I alleged was true. Seminarians from the College of Theology, used by members of various religious congregations, marched to the Cardinal's office to demand my removal. Sisters from various congregations in the parish berated me, accusing me of being a traitor. How did I endure these years of verbal abuse? The first reason was that I was very busy, as we had an AIDS pandemic and there were many sick people and orphans to be catered for on top of the normal work. The second, an older sister had told me her story of what happened when she reported abuse. She was not believed. She was criticised and taunted for raising concern. She became nervous and could not sleep and made mistakes at work. She had no one to talk to except the priest and the doctor, who believed her community members who were covering for the perpetrator. She was committed and spent years in a mental home. I asked her how she felt there, and she said the sisters running the mental home were very kind to her. However, she knew the abuse was still going on in spite of her speaking out. A new superior, after years, arranged her homecoming. She was stigmatized and broken. Eventually, the truth came out as the victims grew up and told their stories. Her telling me her story and her great suffering enabled and empowered me to stand up against the abuse. I knew what she had suffered for telling the truth and trying to stop child abuse. I tell my story today so that you too may raise concern about wrongdoing and break the culture of silence. The events I speak of took place more than 20 years ago. Have things changed since? I wish I could say yes. They may have changed in some congregations and countries. However, I still see those who raise concern about wrongdoing punished and taken from work they love, while the wrongdoers are covered up and the crimes continue. Whose fault is this? We are all to blame for remaining silent, for not speaking up for what is right and against wrong, especially involving children. Let us participate in change by breaking the culture of silence. Thank you.